Cllr Gelada. Oh, and welcome back. Proposed and seconded, they're given to me in writing before the amendment is discussed further or put to the meeting. Cllr Gelada. Oh, and welcome back.
Thank you, everybody. It's nice to be back. Thank you, my Lord Mayor. This year's budget can be summed up in 5 words. Pay more but get less. Council tax is set to rise again in Portsmouth, putting even more pressure on working people, but residents won't be getting more. The proposed increase of 4.99% will simply help the authority keep its head above water. It will help with keeping up with rising demands on social services, schools and homelessness services. Meanwhile, the council needs to make cuts of £2 million to balance the budget, making this yet another challenging year financially for Portsmouth. The cost of living crisis and inflation are 2 of the main drivers of the increased pressure on frontline services. The more financial pressures on families means more chances they'll no longer be able to afford their rent, mortgage or bills. It puts residents at increased risk of homelessness, family breakdown and illness. This creates a double whammy for the council, with more demand for council services when inflation is already pushing up the council's ongoing costs. My Lord Mayor, my heart breaks every time I speak to residents who simply cannot afford to make ends meet anymore. Such as one resident who's a single mum with 3 young children, who's living in cramped and squalid conditions and can't even afford to rent that property. She's been suicidal as a result and has lost all hope. Or an elderly widow who has terrible arthritis, but she can't afford to keep her heating on for long enough, so she's in a constant state of pain. Or the gentleman who lost his job because his company couldn't keep up with the financial pressures, and he'd lost his sense of pride because he's now reliant on food banks. My Lord Mayor, there's currently so much suffering in our city, and yet it's needless because the cost of living crisis is largely man-made and avoidable. Responsibility for this sits squarely with this outdated Conservative government, which insists on clinging on to power, when what the public really want is a general election now, so they can vote with their feet and put the Conservatives where they belong, in the past. While wider global forces have contributed to the economic challenges we face as a country, it was exacerbated by the fallout of the disastrous Truss mini-budget in 2022. Remember that? As a direct result, there's been additional pressure on households with sharp and unexpected increases of interest rates, which now means many face affordable mortgage payments, increases of hundreds of pounds a month, and the threat of losing their homes. Conservative economic mismanagement has so much to answer for, especially for our residents here in Portsmouth. That's why another increase to council tax is going to be another blow for residents. And while the Conservatives will have you believe they're a party of tax cuts, they're actually a government overseeing considerable tax rises. New analysis by Labour reveals the council tax bill is set to top 57 billion under the Conservatives. That's more than double than under the last Labour government. Isn't it ironic that the government is forcing councils to raise council tax while they talk about plans to reduce tax in the forthcoming budget? Doing what they can nationally to secure as many votes as possible, while locally, cash-strapped councils increase tax out of necessity. This is double standards and hypocrisy. As outlined in the budget report, since 2011-12, the council will have made £108 million in savings. This is 49% of its controllable spend. This is eye-watering and just illustrates the chronic underfunding councils like ours have experienced. This means less funds to invest in our city, less funds to tackle the climate crisis, and less funds for future generations. This is wasted time, hope, and opportunity. As a Labour group, to our Liberal Democrat colleagues, we do have to point this out. A lot of the root cause does come from the Lib Dem Tory coalition of 2010. We have to remind everyone because it's an obvious example of cause and effect. Because of this coalition, austerity measures were introduced, leading to cuts to the NHS, police services, and council funding, among many other things. The pain we are feeling now, and the pressure our public services are under, is a direct result of that coalition. Looking forward to the Portsmouth City Council budget today, the leader of the council was willing to consider Labour's policy proposals. These were based on feedback from residents on the ground, as well as the most recent Big Portsmouth survey. This found residents' most wanted investment in health and care services, community safety and regeneration. That's why Labour asked for 3 main things: £100,000 more for road safety measures, £16,000 to extend the Portsmouth Stroke Recovery Service until the end of the financial year, and double the number of deployable CCTV cameras. I'm pleased to say the Leader of the Council agreed to accept these ideas, and I thank him for including them in the budget today. We do have an amendment that we were ready to propose from the floor if the Leader didn't stick to his word, but he did, so I'm pleased to say we don't, we don't need to put it forward. In many parts of our city, traffic, rat running and speeding vehicles are compromising road safety. This makes our city a less desirable place to live, increases pollution, and it poses serious health and safety risks, especially for the most vulnerable, like children or older people. There will now be £500,000 worth of funding available for the worst affected areas based on evidence and resident feedback. With the Portsmouth Stroke Recovery Service, which the Labour Group, Stroke Survivors and Stephen Morgan MP have been campaigning to save, we wanted to secure funding for the service beyond the end of 2024. At present, the contract will expire before the end of the financial year, meaning the service will be facing a cliff edge before alternative provision is made. While the local Integrated Care Board is meant to be funding the service in the long term, there's no plans for this at present. So we really must do all we can to ensure stroke survivors get the support they desperately need. We would like to see this crucial service funded for longer, and we will be keeping pressure up depending on the outcome of the ICB. With our proposals to double the number of CCTV, we ask for this because fly tipping and antisocial behaviour are two of the top issues facing our city. We need to do all we can to help residents feel pride in their streets and in our city once again. Beyond these proposals, we are pleased to see other things in the budgets that we have been campaigning for, such as securing shore power to the port, increasing tree canopy cover, and increased funding for Portsmouth Pride. We do have another request that ideally the budgeting process does start earlier, giving other parties the time to contribute ideas and scrutinise plans. That's so we're not left scrambling with a couple of weeks to digest the budget in difficult economic circumstances. More time and collaboration would lead to a better budget. My Lord Mayor, Labour in Power offers solutions to solve people's problems. In our own city, the publicly owned port that makes £6 million profit for frontline services each year is a legacy of Labour running the council in Portsmouth. Nationally, Labour's last time in government saw the lowest waiting times for the NHS. For the forthcoming general election, Labour is committed to reinvesting in the NHS again, promising thousands more GP and dentist appointments and a dramatic decrease in existing waiting times for services. These are just some of the transformational things that Labour has and will achieve, and it's what drives us as Labour councillors to want to make Portsmouth an even safer, greener and fairer city for all. Lastly, I want to put on record our group's thanks to council officers, in particular Chris Ward and his team, for everything they've done on getting the budget secured for today. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you.